Origin Gents, reaction. This is What If the Mongol Empire Reunited Today by the channel RealLifeLore. Yes, another What If Empire Reunited Today series. Yeah, I did few already, so it's fun. So why not? Let's do the Mongol. The Mongol Empire at its highest took up 16% of all the land on Earth, controlled 1 out of every 4 people on the planet, a 13th century superpower. Its presence was very brief compared to the other empires, but what if the Mongol Empire was suddenly recreated today with the same borders they had at their apex? That would include China. So I don't know, man. Yeah, China's pretty powerful. This video attempts to answer that question using data analysis and statistics from readily available information and data. Yeah, Mongol Empire, right? I mean, 1 out of 4 people. I mean, they did, sacked and killed entire towns and villages, entire cities. Somebody told me that, somebody, I guess, insulted Genghis Khan's, daughters, I don't know, husband or something. I don't know. So insulted somebody and he just basically killed the entire town or something. That's just fucked up. Entire towns are empty today because what Mongols did. So Mongols had pretty large empire. So I don't know how this is gonna go. Always, compare that with the current USA, right? How much influence and power USA has, and usually, USA always beats all this empire. So we'll see if Mongols can rise above the USA or not. So let's watch this one.
The Mongol Empire was famous for its vastness and brutality. At its height in the year 1279, the empire took up 16% of all of the land on Earth and was home to about 1 in every 4 humans on the planet. Like all empires, the Mongols came and went, but what if suddenly the empire was recreated tomorrow? This is an exploration of what this hypothetically would look like if we can suspend the disbelief that this could ever happen. So this is a map of the current world, and this is a map of the Mongol Empire circa 1279 placed on top.
Yeah, they reached all the way to Europe, right? They even fought there and throwing dead bodies in the towns that was infected with, I guess, at the time some kind of a disease or something, Black Death or something, I don't know. But then again, Oli Sakaship Prox and Blue said that that's a myth and not true. But yeah, that's still left up though.
The empire would stretch all the way from South Korea to modern-day Poland, but it could have been even bigger if a few more things had gone right for the Mongols. They tried invading Japan twice, but were twice smacked down by some angry weather who didn't think that it was quite fair for the Mongols to be using boats. And speaking of boats, they also tried invading Indonesia once, but guerrilla fighting in the jungle in the 13th century wasn't exactly the biggest strength of the Mongol Empire. They also pushed west as far as Gaza in Palestine and raided into Austria and northern Italy in Europe before being pushed back.
Oh, that's the incident where people say they threw the dead bodies at people, right?
The maximum amount of land that they ever controlled at one time in 1270.
Holy shit, they took most of Asia, only, excluding Pakistan and India and countries around it.
So this would be the borders of the modern-day Mongol Empire recreated today. 28 different countries would lose all or some of their territory to this monstrosity, and the total
also Afghanistan. Mongols took Afghanistan. Look at that.
Population of this beast would be around 1,900,459,000 people, making it by far the largest country in the world in terms of both size and population, just like the old Mongol Empire was. About 1 out of every 4 people in the modern world would be a citizen of this empire,
it includes
just
China,
like in the 13th century. And out of the 15 biggest cities in the empire, 11 out of them would all be located in China. In fact, only 1 of the 15.
Moscow would also be part of this, damn.
Biggest cities would even be located outside of Asia. Moscow.
Shanghai, Beijing, Moscow, Seoul, right? Nanjing, Hong Kong, Baghdad, Iran.
The 3 biggest cities would be Moscow, Beijing, and Shanghai, and we would need to decide on a capital for the country to get behind. You may think that a logical choice would be Ulaanbaatar, which is the current capital of Mongolia. But Ulaanbaatar wasn't even founded until 1693, long after the Mongol Empire had already collapsed, and only has a population of 1.3 million people today, or about half of all of Mongolia's modern population. The city is surrounded by extremely sparsely populated land and is very far away from the rest of the...
Ooh, I saw that Grand Tour episode on that, right? Holy shit, that surprised me. I knew Mongolia had very little people, but didn't know it was mostly empty like that. right? That was an awesome episode from Grand Tour where they assembled a car and just drove there. It was just empty land, basically a lake here and there. That was just perfect.
The empire. So the most logical choice of a capital would probably be Beijing instead, which not only is the current capital of China, but was actually a historical capital of the Mongol Empire under this guy, Kublai Khan, back when it was known as Khan Balik. Beijing would be the second biggest city in the empire and has enormous infrastructure already in place since it is already the capital of China, and we would of course have to rename the city back to Khan Balik. Sorry, Beijing. As for the actual people that would make up this empire, 66% or 2/3 of the population would be ethnic Han Chinese, which would likely dominate the country. The next two biggest ethnic groups would be the Russians and Koreans, who would account for 6% and 4% of the population respectively. And the remaining 28% would be a mix.
I'm not gonna lie, entire Korean army, North and South, Chinese army, also some of the Russias, because Moscow is part of it. I don't know, this Mongol Empire would be a bit powerful, wouldn't it?
Of dozens of different groups. Hilariously, in the modern Mongol Empire, ethnic Mongols themselves would only account for 0.16% of the total population. As for languages, about 51% of everybody in this country would be speaking or able to understand Mandarin Chinese, which would likely become the official or one of the official languages. Russian would be understood by around 11% of the country and would be the second largest language. A combination of 3 other Chinese languages known as Wu, Yue, and Min combined would be understood by 10.5% of everybody, and the next 2 biggest languages would be Korean and Urdu. The empire would also be extremely religiously diverse, and surely everybody living inside would think that that's going to be just fine. About
it's just perfect. I said on the video, like, okay, all this religious group, I guess they are just going to agree not to kill each other, which would never happen.
Everybody would adhere to traditional Chinese folk religions, while Sunni Islam would be the second largest belief system at 12.1% of the population. Buddhism would be next at 5.3%, followed by Orthodox Christianity at 4.6%, Shia Islam at 4.5%, Protestants at 2.2%.
Orthodox, that's mostly Russians, right?
And Catholics at 0.8%. Atheists and non-religious persons would account for the remaining 12% of the population. This also means that the modern Mongol Empire would be the world's largest Muslim country, largest atheist country, and 3rd largest Christian country by numbers of people.
Yeah,
the
but
Mongol
it's way too
Empire
big.
would also have a very powerful economy with a nominal GDP of 17.778 trillion US dollars, which means that despite having all of this land, it would still only be the world's 2nd largest economy, behind the United States. The GDP per
got close by a trillion.
capita would be $9,355, meaning the citizens of the country would be ranked with the 62nd best living standards in the world, slightly behind the conditions in Malaysia and Mexico. Finally, the modern Mongol Empire would also have an estimated military size of 6,131,000 active soldiers, making the Mongol military by far the largest in the world. It's fascinating to think what this country would actually look like. What would its government look like? How would it conduct its diplomacy with the rest of the world? And could it actually survive for very long?
No.
These are questions for another time, so please feel free to leave any answers or
Yeah, it would never happen. First of all, like I said in the previous video, US and Russia basically bombed them. If they try to reunite like that, it's a threat, right? I also said, they would just basically try to help smaller countries, which this Mongol Empire trying to annex, help in the sense that that would be an excuse to attack them. So this would never happen, right? A major power rising like that in Asia, that would never happen. But still, holy shit, they came close to USA, right? 17 trillion, while USA being 18 trillion. I knew it. China, entire, North and South Korea, and all these other countries, Moscow in them. So, I knew that this would be really powerful. Obviously, military is the most powerful, but, but by the GDP, it came... This is just ridiculous. This just shows how rich USA is. After all this shit, USA is still richer. Alright people, that was What If the Mongol Empire Reunited today by the channel RealLifeLore. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the reaction I did, there's a link in the description. Check out the household plays like RealLifeLore reaction with all of my RealLifeLore reaction videos in them. Some of them like would be checkered box over them because it's weird. Some of the RealLifeLore video gets blocked, some of them don't. I don't know what's with that. Check out the playlist too, like history, or simplifier, Oli Sagashi production, Kuzgazad in a nutshell. And yeah, I'll see you next time.